and all to Champion Design Workshop number 10, Shyvanna! My name is Canifit, joined by Happy Lightsense today because Exodus is off working at a festival. Happy, I'm glad to have you along, you and your trumpet.
Hey, what up?
So, we're reaching the end of our redesign workshops, which is where we attempt to get ahead of Riot and redesign the champions that they are planning to redesign. Happy, could you, for any people who are watching who maybe aren't familiar with that whole sort of project, as it were, what's going on there?
So earlier this year, Riot released a thread asking for help in choosing the next champion update for 2020. And they proposed 5 champions that desperately need a rework. The 5 were Fiddlesticks, Shyvanna, Nocturne, Dr. Mundo, Bear. Did I miss something? No, I think I got all of them.
I think so, yeah, there's 5 of them.
Yeah, right. And I think Fiddlesticks won, so they're probably gonna do that guy first.
Yes, I think it was very close between Bear and Fiddlesticks, like it was barely any difference between them, so I think they're doing both of them.
Maybe. I feel like both of them really need it. Anyway, in our redesign project, we already had a crack at Fiddlesticks, Nocturne.
Oh yeah, everyone who isn't Shyvanna.
Everyone who isn't Shyvanna. Okay. Wow.
I know, right? Worked really hard.
Great, good job. So now the Dragon Lady is the only one left, and we're gonna see if we can make her better, more compelling.
Well, different at least. Well, so first thing off, as we got on the screen here, let's run through her current setup. So we've got her passive, which I think is a kind of a contentious issue from Shyvanna mains and people in general. It's got like, it's got at least some kind of dragon connection there, but it's pretty straightforward in terms of her dealing bonus damage to dragons is actually relatively new, I believe, but her getting a very, very minor buff off of murdering her relatives has been around for a while.
Right. I think they had some trouble changing that when they diversified the elemental drakes, because before that it was just one dragon that didn't have any like weird effects, I guess. But now it's like every dragon has different kinds of auto attacks, faster, slower, more AoE, less AoE, I don't know what. So I feel like they were kind of slow in adapting that with her passive.
To say, this is something which we're definitely going to be looking at pretty heavily for reworking, just because, 5 armor and 5 bonus magic resist is just, it's so incredibly lame. But anyway, so onto her Q. Like, this is, for me, this feels like one of the abilities that's got a lot of room to have more going on in it, because it's effectively just a auto attack reset, and that's it. That's all it does.
That's it.
Yeah,
it's pretty boring.
So you can see here, like, it can critically strike. It just is. It's an auto attack reset. Like, you can reduce the cooldown on it, but that's literally as far as it goes. It's more interesting in the dragon form because of having an AoE and doubling down on hit effects, but like certainly when you're using it in human form, it's a weird combination of central to her kit, but at the same time just not being very interesting at all.
Right.
I don't know, do you have any thoughts on Twin Bite as it stands?
Like you already said, it's pretty boring. It's like it kind of plays off the fact that when Shyvanna used all of her abilities, she's just auto-attacking, so if you can effectively use your Q, then it might make more sense with a kit, but as it stands, it's just an auto-attack reset. And like all the other champions that have auto-attack resets don't just have it as an auto-attack reset, like it still does something else.
So, I mean, yeah, this is going to be something we'll be looking at. Actually, weirdly enough, I don't think her passive actually mentions the fact that she uses Fury rather than Mana, which, I mean, I guess anyone who's played against Shyvanna or with Shyvanna would know. Hey, certainly, welcome to the stream. I hope that you will have some insights on Shyvanna as well. But yeah, so her whole thing being that she builds up Fury. I guess, to be fair, actually, I think that the Fury comes in with her ultimate. But alright, so onto her W, Burnout, which I know that, you know, we're in the land of AP Shyvanna now, which is a very strange land to occupy. But I think her W and her E are probably the ones that tie most close to that. I think Burnout's probably the most noticeable when, you know, from someone else's perspective. When you see a Shyvanna, you expect to see her with these Burnout effects around her. But Happy, like, how do you feel like Burnout is at the moment?
I think it's pretty useful because of the movement speed and just like I imagine her as a pretty quick jungler when it comes to these annoying little camps like wolves or chickens, because it's just an AoE, it's around her, and since she's a melee champion, she's always going to be onto you, or like she's going to try at least, and in that case Burnout is pretty effective.
It does feel a little bit like the whole, like, you know, because yeah, you've got the two ideas tied up in this ability, that it's AoE to help jungle clear, which I think you could potentially fit in somewhere else, and movement speed as her mobility bit. Certainly someone's saying, how badly do you want to rework her? Do you want to make her work better mechanically or closer to her lore too? We'll get into her lore in a minute, which we've been discussing, and we kind of come to the conclusion it doesn't really have a huge amount of hooks there for abilities. Apart from maybe heart ripping?
No!
But yeah, I don't know. If if we could find a way to bring mobility into her kit and AoE, like on other abilities, it feels a little bit like Burnout doesn't really need to be there anymore.
I still like it. It looks fancy and dragon-like.
I do agree. It is an iconic ability. Let's see. Oh, certainly some. Yeah, you're right. Shyvanna being melee, all the other dragons not melee. That's true.
But I feel like we couldn't make her a ranged champion because that would be like she would be way closer to Aurelion Sol in that sense, because he also has like a W that is like some sort of circular situation around him that deals damage, and I don't know what the things we talked about regarding some of the abilities that we wanted to rework. I don't think it would work to make her a ranged champion.
It's an interesting idea, though. Like, there's definitely something to keep in mind. Like, someone as well. Yeah, we're definitely actively soliciting people to come up with ideas for abilities. So if you can think of a way to make her work as even just partially ranged, because I mean, I guess to be honest, at the moment with the way that Flame Breath works, she kind of is partially ranged at the moment. Yes, someone's talking about the AoE Q from the dragon form. Let's have a quick check actually. Does the Twin Bite currently have an AP scaling? Like, I know the basic one doesn't, but I was just curious if the enhanced one did. I don't think it does. No, it's more the AoE stuff. I don't know, she just feels a bit weird at the moment. Like, personally speaking, I would rather see her be like either an AP champion who kind of like operates that way, where she kind of like pings people with fireballs, or just have that not be a thing. But anyway, so this is as good a time as any to talk about Flame Breath E. So that's effectively like, it's one of the most generic abilities I think you can have. So you throw out a fireball, a skill shot fireball, and then if you hit someone while they're sort of burning from that fireball, they take percentage health damage. Like, what do you make of that one, Happy? Well, as it stands.
I think it makes her more of a dragon, definitely. Even though I think it's really weird that even in her half human, half dragon form at the very beginning, she can spit fire. But I mean, The only thing that's really annoying to me is that it's a skill shot and it's not on her Q. Because all other champions have skill shots on their Q.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought of that. I feel like the order of abilities does, to an extent, tend to indicate how Riot intend for a champion to be played. Like, I really get the impression that Twin Bite's supposed to be like a primary ability, and the other ones are in support of it. Like, isn't something you're expected to Flame Breath someone and then Twin Bite them to get the effect off twice? If she had her Flame Breath kind of effect on her Q, that would tend to indicate that she was much more based around her popping people with Flame Breaths than otherwise. Okay, so... And it's worth noting the dragon form on this one being that it's just basically just makes the effect a lot bigger, and yeah, it kind of like leaves the AoE on the ground. So yeah, something. Let's see. So someone's talking about trying to adhere her closer to at least one of the elemental drakes in her design. I think we've got some ideas in that direction, but someone, if you've got some like specifics as to what you think would work in that kind of regard, then absolutely let us know. But alright, so onto her current ultimate. So firstly, she only gets her whole Fury mechanic when she's got her ultimate, which I don't know, to me it seems a little bit weird, but how about you, Happy?
You mean that her passive Fury bar only really comes in at level 6?
Yes. That she kind of only accesses her resource system purely for her ultimate. Like, she doesn't even do anything.
That's stupid.
For it. Yeah, it
I
just
don't
seems
like
weird.
it. I mean, if you have a look at other champions that don't use mana, like energy champions or even Renekton with this, he has Fury as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fury or Rage or I don't know what. They can always use their energies for different things and not just for ultimate. So I don't know, it's just not very well implemented in her kit right now.
Because we did look through like the sort of design notes from when she first came out, and it seemed like the whole idea of the past. Like, I feel like maybe if she didn't have this particular ultimate, that she just would have been completely resourceless. Because yeah, this is. It seemed like the idea here was that you could build up your Fury multiple times in a row to get the dragon effect multiple times, or you can also extend this whole dragon transformation. But I don't know. In practice, I don't. Is it a thing that kind of Shyvanna will have a fight that's long enough to allow for her to turn into a dragon twice? I don't remember ever seeing that.
I mean, if she would be played the way she was intended to be played, so in this kind of bruiser style, maybe it would work, but right now, I don't think longer team fights are really a thing, because it's more about assassins and maybe poke style compositions. So bruisers aren't really on the rise right now, and like we touched on earlier, the AP Shyvanna build is a little bit more meta right now.
Well, so as well as the Fury stuff, we've got the active dash, which also kind of brings people along with you. And then once she's done, which also, I generally just don't know why her abilities have got AP scaling. Like, it's so weird to me. Like, unless you're trying to, I presume that they never sort of intended her to work this kind of way. But, I don't know. I do remember, like, a patch note aeons ago, talking about how they put AP scaling on things to make people feel less bad about building Triforce, even though Triforce no longer has ability power anymore. But, Yes, we're going to be getting into the backstory stuff momentarily. But yeah, you're right, and happy pointing out before, the resemblance between Shyvanna and the Infernal Dragon seems to be the closest. Okay, so the last part of her ultimate being that she gets bonus range, bonus health, and empowered basic abilities. And she can extend the duration of her ultimate by hitting things.
Hitting things.
Yeah. Yes, I think her lore is from a real long time ago. If you look at her lore page, which I guess we can bring up, I don't know if I've got a page set up to look at it. She's had a few different versions of her own lore. But yeah, I mean, Happy, you know this a lot better than I do. Could you give us like a sort of a brief rundown of what her deal is lore-wise?
So her dealio right now with the current lore is that her mother is a dragon, a great elder beast, and she had a bunch of dragon eggs that she was guarding, and then a man came along. To be precise, it was a Piltover mage, and he stole one of the eggs and wanted to sell it. But before he could sell it on, I think, a Demacian market, the egg hatched, and out of it came a small little properly colored girl. And yeah, the mage really liked her, and he didn't want to, I don't know, discard her. So he raised her as his daughter and named her Shyvanna after the great beast that is her mother.
I still think it's incredible that he would steal someone's child and name that child after the mother that you stole it from.
Right, it's kind of crazy, maybe dumb, I don't know. Anyway, there's some sort of spiritual connection between Shyvanna and her mother, so she eventually, like the mother eventually started looking for her missing child. In the process, she burned down multiple villages, and one of them contained a place where Shyvanna and her father were, I suppose, because her father died in the flames and Shyvanna tried to save him, but she couldn't, and then she ran away and tried hiding. And she found Prince Jovan the Fourth, who was badly wounded, and because she couldn't save her father, she really wanted to try and save the prince to kind of make up for it. And she did just that, saved the prince, and then they became friends. And then things happened, and her mother finally found Shyvanna, and they had a fight. A really nasty fight, if I may say so, because Shyvanna killed her own mother and carried her skull to the great town of Demacia. Woohoo!
So, like, yeah, and then she's just like, I'm Demacia now, I guess. I kind of feel like there's a few different aspects of this which aren't really used anywhere. Like, her being, like, this whole connection between her and her mother, like, a kind of, yeah, the sort of connection between her and dragons or whatever. Doesn't, I mean, apart from, like, her passive, I suppose, it doesn't really seem to come into anything. And it's also, like, in terms of backstory, like, this is probably nothing really to do with her, like, her kit, but the fact that she's human-like, there was some reasoning behind it in the older versions of her lore, but they were all pretty weak reasons.
Yeah. I suppose it's still somehow connected to the fact that the person who stole the egg was a mage, and the fact that dragons are magical beasts, so some sort of, like, whack magical intercourse happened that has nothing to do with, like, any kind of other intercourse. So let's not think about bad things with people and eggs. Stop it. Let's not do this.
Well, like, in Dungeons and Dragons and things like that, dragons can transform into people, and that's how you end up with half-dragons and things like that. Because the idea of, like, you know, this Demacian mage seducing Shyvanna's mother, it doesn't really work. So that's why they're kind of stuck in this place where it's like the mage is sort of is connected with her, but it's not really clear why this would really be the case. Yeah, I mean, that's basically the current existing law, which is that in the older versions, the mage tried to harvest her, and that's why he kind of imprinted some of his DNA onto her, even though that doesn't make any sense. But in the more recent versions, the fact that he was near her turned her into a half-human while she was in the egg, which is, again, a really strange idea.
Oh, maybe that, like, thinking about elemental drakes, maybe they just kind of turned into the element that they're close to, kind of like Kiana's omlatal ring of destruction thingy. So if the dragon, like any kind of elemental drake, is close to water, it turns into a water dragon.
Oh, so they start off as sort of bland dragons.
Yeah, maybe something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I suppose that sort of makes sense, though. She doesn't... Well, I suppose this is something we could change, is that her current visuals don't really reflect that she was raised in, like, Damacian circles.
True.
Like, what about the idea she looks a bit more like Galio? Like, rather...
So, with, like, petricite armor and stuff?
Yeah, that she was kind of like... You've got... Yeah, okay, so this is an idea that comes up in some stories, the idea of, like, a trash elemental. As in, you know, because you've got, like, sort of wind and fire elementals, but they sort of represent different things, but the idea that a magical creature could come into contact with civilization and pick up some aspect of that civilization, and sort of... in the same way you sort of see, like, urban foxes. So, yeah, they've adapted to life in a different environment, which is totally different than what they've evolved for, but they're still able to function. So in the same way that maybe, if we go with this idea that dragons sort of imprint on what's around them, that she imprinted on, like, Damacian, like, ways of thing, and that's enough to make her, in some way, partially resemble them.
Mm-hmm. But, I feel like that would also connect to some of her older laws, where it was stated that she liked Demacia because it suppressed her magic and kept her human, so it was easier for her to hide that she was a half-dragon. So if she was wearing petricite armor to battle, it would mean that she could suppress her rage in a fight.
Oh, so you think that maybe she doesn't, maybe it's not actually part of her, but it's just something that she wears as kind of like almost a containment suit.
Yeah.
That's a kind of a cool idea. Let's see, someone's saying,
that's a neat idea. So the baby that hatched out of the egg was too young, too small to survive. So the mage saved it by applying magic to it, but the only magic that a human mage would know is obviously human magic, so it ended up making a half-human, half-dragon creature.
Yeah, I think that could work. That's certainly a more reasonable explanation than what we've got at the moment, so sure.
It also explains why the mage stayed around and raised her as his own child.
Yes. Yeah. Like, yeah, someone's saying that he kind of used his own life force to do that. So I think that would kind of work. I would be okay with that as an idea. I think that's better. It doesn't really fundamentally change anything, but it provides at least a logical through line to her lore of being that she's actually is partially human as opposed to just a very impressionable dragon.
Right.
Okay. So I suppose the kind of thing that we haven't really got from her lore, whichever way we look at it, is well, I suppose if we go back one version of her lore, which is, let me see if I can just grab it, because for some reason it's in the patch notes rather than in the anywhere slightly more sensible. Then she's got this whole thing of that she has kind of a sort of a magical thing, which they refer to as, what was it? Runic Echo? That's like,
hey.
That's right.
Yeah, the runic echoes inside her.
Yeah, and it's very ill-defined what that could even really mean in this kind of context, but like that's where the whole petricite thing comes in. But yeah, I think there's something to be said for that kind of idea to sort of change what she looks like visually, and maybe that she, as she goes, she sort of sheds off more and more pieces of this petricite armor as she becomes more like her true form, as it were.
Yeah, good idea. So it's just a lot more change of appearance and maybe a little less actual change of what's going on, because in the right article, it was like in the first sentence, it's all about like her overall visual and kit. Like it's not the thing about her that needs the most work. But in context with like the way she was presented to be and how people wanted her to be, it just didn't really work, because she didn't feel like, when you play her, she doesn't feel like a half dragon. She just feels like this stacking machine that eventually at the end turns into a big old dragony beast that like spits one fireball, and if you're an AP Shyvanna, then everybody dies, and if you're not, then not everybody dies.
Well, okay, so yeah, so the lore stuff isn't terribly helpful with this in terms of at least it doesn't have any obvious hooks to go into. Like the story hooks in terms of her like siblings and things like that could maybe come into like future champions, but for what our purposes, it doesn't seem to help a huge amount. But alright, so let's get on to the actual champion designing stuff.
Ooh.
Since we've been talking a lot without actually doing any champion design. So, what I was hoping to kind of bring in, and I mean, I kind of hope that a lot of people aren't familiar with what this is the idea. So, it's to try and bring in the transformation idea more strongly than what's currently in place, which at the moment is like, it's pretty, like, it's, yeah, you're right, it's pretty binary. Like, you're either completely human or you're completely dragon, like, for most intents and purposes. So my idea was to runic echoes. Oh, someone's okay. That's a good thought. It could well be that those were supposed to be how dragons became other ones, right? Rather than it being an environmental thing. But yeah, so I kind of want to see where you stand with this initial idea, which is like a more of a hitting harder on the body transformation idea. So the overall concept I was thinking it was. Sam Freeman, give Shyvanna the Futanari treatment. Wait, who's Futanari?
No, don't Google it. Don't Google it.
I've got to Google it now.
Oh god.
Hermaphrodite. Thank you, Sam Freeman. You've really brought the tone up. So, I was thinking leaning more heavily on the whole sort of gradual transformation aspect. So, the whole thing of that she would, as she used her abilities, her appearance would actually change. Because, obviously, it's a very different time now from when Shyvanna was originally designed to where she is now. But that's a much more practical idea that she could, like, morph body parts and things as she used the abilities. And then, as she kind of goes through the game, become less and less human as the game goes on. But, yeah, Happy, you had, like, a kind of a sort of a more sort of big picture idea in that direction.
Did I? Was it on me?
Yeah, well, the whole thing that she would scale up over the game.
Yeah, right.
And sort of look a bit like Kale.
So with Kale, it's like if you put more points in your ultimate, she gets more wings and I don't know, becomes a little bit more holy and more like the true aspect of judgment that she portrays. And I feel like that could work with Shyvanna as well, as in a way that if you put more points in your ultimate, you just turn more and more into a dragon. And if we keep the idea that she's wearing petricite armor to, I don't know, contain stuff, then maybe in the process of leveling up, you can see the petricite breaking from her body.
Yes. Yeah, I really like the. I can't even. Well, petricite's not a real word, is it? So, So I like anyone who's got a built-in explanation for why in League of Legends terms they become more powerful as they go. So I think that's kind of cool. So one of the big picture concepts was that she, like, yeah, with this whole sort of becoming closer to a dragon thing, that she'd have a kind of, her ultimate would have a Kha'Zix or Kai'Sa's kind of idea going on, that as she gets a level of her ultimate, she gets to choose one aspect of herself, like which would manifest itself as one of her abilities, to have as stronger for the rest of the game, but then she'd lose a little bit of humanity. And I guess, so presumably, like, Happy, by the time we get to level 16, she's more or less a full dragon all of the time.
Right. I wouldn't say that she's... maybe she's like a small version of a full dragon, because she can always... Like, that's the passive part of her ultimate, right? She can put points in it and then choose some sort of aspect that she wants to amplify. But there's also an active part where she, I don't know, still turns into a dragon, I guess. Or are we not keeping that idea?
I think... Yeah, well, I think we'll have to work on that as we go, so we'll rely on you guys in the chat as well to try and come up with ways to do this, so... Well, actually, I realised that maybe we came at this the wrong direction. So, one of the concepts which I was trying to get across in this is the whole idea of trying to build shape-shifting into everything that she does. So it's much more central to her kind of concept, is that she's, you know, she is a shapeshifter, and that's kind of part of her whole deal. So that she would shapeshift every time she uses an ability. So, like, you know, with her Q, if we're keeping it the same as it is right now, which doesn't need to be at all, that she would actually, like her head would transform in some fashion, like her jaw would distend or something, and when she bit on someone, she would not only transform when she did it, but she'd have an ongoing transformation that would fall off after a little bit, but that she'd have some kind of extra effect for a certain duration after she'd used that ability, and that would reflect in what she looked like. And this ties into the ultimate scaling, in that when she scaled up, like, say, if she uses her Q, and for the sake of argument that she, you know, distends her jaw and makes her face look more dragon-like, if she chooses to evolve her Q with her ultimate, that transformation becomes permanent.
Yeah, so I'd say something like, if it's not in this permanent state, so if it's just after you use the ability, it could look a little bit like Aatrox when he uses his ultimate. You know, the way he's like kind of see-through in some stages, like when he dies, I mean, in his ultimate form.
Okay, yeah.
And this kind of like semi-see-through, sort of, I don't know, ghostly appearance could happen to, like, it could reflect the transformation. So we would see this big red see-through dragon head on top of her head.
Oh, I see what you mean, yeah.
It's not actually her head that does the transformation, because you're still trying to get to this like body horror thingy that you sent me earlier, and that's like really terrifying. I don't know. I feel like maybe with this, like this spiritual see-through ghosty thingy, it might work out better with her other skins as well, because she has some colorful ones, like a blue one and a purple one, and I don't know. And maybe this would tie in with all the other themes from all the other skins.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. That's probably a more practical way of doing it. Like, I just want to do the most complicated way possible.
Yay!
Yes, someone, Aatrox can't revive anymore. Please F the chat for poor old Aatrox. And I think that's a good example of Riot actually changing a champion around to take something which people would have thought was, like, it's completely central to his character.
True.
And then just take it away and just be like, screw it, not doing it anymore.
It's ridiculous. I don't know why people thought it was a good idea to take it away.
Like, just to be contrary, like, I kind of don't mind, just because I'm just like, well, as much as that was a defining aspect of his character, I don't know if it necessarily, just because it was the most noticeable part of his kit doesn't mean it has to stay that way forever. Like, in terms of he could just be something else, in terms of, because a lot of reworked champions are just totally different than the original one. Like, they effectively delete the old champion and just replace it. But, I don't know.
That's right. But, I mean, I feel like the way they reworked him the last time, so like when they added the Riven style Q, it wasn't the same champion anymore, and they had to keep the revive, because otherwise people could have just like slapped a different name on it and called it a new champion.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, this definitely was aware of nothing. I feel like we're getting a little bit off topic here, but they're doing a lot of that recently, which is trying to take away the problematic parts of a champion's kit in order to be able to get them to do, like, just sort of try and realize their idea a bit more cleanly without because it's like they've been trying to wrestle with this new version of Aatrox for a while and not getting anywhere. So I think it's just at this point they're like, we can't balance a champion who's got the ability to self-revive, so we're just going to take it out.
Anyway, back to the Dragon Lady.
Okay, so let's actually start to get into some proper detail. So so this, as is the tradition here at the Champion Design Workshop, everything's going to be massively overcomplicated because it's more of a design exercise than it is a natural attempt to make a kit that actually works off the bat. So we can put in some of the stuff we've already established. So each rank of R gives evolution point. Let's just call it an evolution point for the time being, for a basic ability.
Or you could just call it a scaling point.
Oh, go on then. There's gonna be lots of rubbish lizard puns in here. Let's call it Aru. Oh, someone, if you want to come up with ideas for abilities, feel more than welcome. Anyone who's watching, feel more than welcome to come up with stuff. Like, I mean, we've kind of already got a bit of an idea of what we were thinking of, but if you come up with something better, then we'll just use that. Okay. Oh, that's really, so Happy, you had an idea for how to tie the elemental dragons more closely into Shyvanna, rather than just kind of giving her generic tiny stat boosts.
Yeah, right. I really like the idea that she's actually getting something from killing elemental drakes, but it's nothing amazing. Like, she just gets armor and magic resist, right? And I feel like that this doesn't really reflect the elemental drakes at all. So there should be a little bit more of like a reason for her to go after her relatives other than 5 armor and 5 magic resist.
Sure.
So what I was thinking is that she gets some sort of like buff from each kind of elemental drake. Like, let's say if she kills an infernal drake, it adds something to one of her abilities. Like, let's say which one is the flamethrower?
Oh, we were gonna, yeah, I think so. E would be the flamethrower.
Right. So if she kills an infernal drake, then her E ability just becomes more flamey, or more, I don't know, a bigger radius, something like that.
Okay, so I guess, yes, we've only got 3. We've got 4 drakes and 3 abilities, unless we have that tied to the R as well. Actually, that could work quite well. So elemental drakes empower her basic abilities in some small way, like even if it's like a small range increase or something like that. So someone had the idea of, so it's in the same ballpark that it's getting evolution points from killing elemental drakes. So I guess you sort of end up in roughly the same place, but you kind of get there slightly different ways. Okay, yeah, so certainly suggesting that rather than getting scaling points off of ranking up at ultimate, she gets scaling points from killing elemental drakes.
Yeah,
think of that?
if it's like the normal scaling system, like every time she kills a dragon, she can just put a rank in her like her Q or her ultimate or whatever. This would mean that after killing 4 elemental drakes, she'd have like all of her abilities fully ranked up at level 12.
Also,
No,
yeah,
wait,
I think
14.
the
I can't
distinction
count.
here, which is possibly getting a little bit confused, just to make sure we're all talking about the same thing, is that I think it's not the case of ranking up the actual skill, it's the enhancement of that skill.
Ah,
So if we say, for instance, like, spoilers, the flamethrower is one of the things that maybe if like it would be that. What's the champion who has a similar kind of idea? Oh, it's Victor. It's the Victor idea that, like, so it's effectively it's Victor's passive, but instead of buying it, you get it from killing elemental drakes.
oh yeah, that makes sense. That's actually pretty good. So each elemental drake kind of drops one of those runic echoes or whatever those were called, and she can pick it up and use it to rank up, or like not rank up, evolve one of her abilities.
Yeah, so it's like Victor, it's like Kha'Zix in terms of it doesn't make the ability just stronger, but it adds some kind of utility to it or something like that.
Right.
So I think
That's a good
Victor.
one.
Yeah, thank you, certainly. So I think, yeah. So someone's got the idea of that you'd have a different effect from each different Drake you had when you applied it to each different ability. I think that's too complicated, to the point of being that I think there would be so many choices that it would just become overwhelming, and also I don't want to write out that many different things. But I think the general idea of, you know, the first 4 Drakes you do allow you to add an effect on each of your 4 different abilities, I think is a cool idea.
Yeah, so it's just 4. So let's say, I don't know, your type management is great and you manage to get like 5 or maybe 6, I don't know if 6 is possible, but you get a bunch of dragons before the Elder Dragon. Then the ones after the 4 drakes just don't do anything anymore.
I think probably. I think, like, to balance it around the idea that, like, 4 is quite a lot. Like,
That's a high number.
yeah, I think, like, having it be that the 4 is considered to be the high end of normal play, and that to have anything locked behind the need to get 5 or 6 dragons, I think is just crazy.
Right.
Because you're just never going to have to see that happen. Whereas I think if she gets most of her effects from, say, 2 or 3 dragons, then you're much more in sort of this could actually happen territory.
True, true.
But okay, let's see. Someone's coming up with an idea, but we'll come back to that once we've thought it through.
Yeah. I mean, we could just go and talk about the flamethrower because we hinted on it already. So
Yes. So
yeah, that was your idea. So you have to explain it because I still didn't understand
So,
what you meant with the Coney thing. I don't know.
oh yeah, that I'm thinking maybe we're just gonna give up on that
Okay.
because it's too complicated. But let me find a picture of a flamethrower. So let's just. I'll bring that up on stream actually because I don't want to kind of directly just use it without giving any kind of credit to anybody. Just a second. So I'm thinking of a flamethrower somewhat like this, which is more of a straight line, which it persists over a bit of time, rather than it being like a kind of a firebolt, which is what it is at the moment. That it would almost be like an area denial tool. That she would throw out a line of flame that would come out like again like she'd have to distend her mouse to do this. Her mouth to do this. And that she would
carries a tiny mouse.
yeah, a mouse goes up on her shoulder just like Braw! It's terrifying, honestly. But yeah, that she would fire out like a line of flame. Like, I guess she could just spit the flame. That might be a bit easier, where she kind of like spits out like a bunch of ooze or something, and then that ooze ignites.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, what are you talking about with I'm trying to read through what someone's saying.
He's just getting on like all the effects that dragons usually give in game, and then if you evolve an ability, then I don't know. They get more of that effect.
I mean, that's probably the most. That would be the most straightforward way to go. Would be to just be like that she gets 1.5%, like 1.5 times whatever the current effects that she would otherwise get from the Drake, which is probably the most practical way to do it because it would take the least work. Like you could put that in now.
Yeah, but I think that's pretty boring, and I feel like it's. I mean, not boring. That's. I mean, yeah, like you say, it's pretty straightforward, and it has the same appeal to Shyvanna as it has to all of her teammates, because it effectively does the same thing to all of her teammates, but on a smaller scale. So, haha, pun intended.
Gosh, we've got one pun. We're going to use it as much as possible.
No, I mean, I feel like if the dragons just had different effects on Shyvanna, it would make it a lot more worthwhile for her to go for dragons than it already is. Because let's be real, the dragon effects that you get from killing them are already pretty neat. But if Shyvanna would get more effects or different effects or stronger effects or whatever, then they would be even neater.
I think I'm generally not a big fan of passive abilities, so like as much as I kind of like for me, like I feel like the Cloud Drake is actually my preferred version of the Elemental Drake buffs, just because it has a visible effect. Whereas for Infernal, like that effect is not gameplay visible. Like they do more damage, but you don't get to see that happen. You just take a little bit more damage. And the same for Mountain Drakes. It's like it's strategically useful, but you don't see anything happen per se. It's just they just do more damage. And to a lesser extent, even the Ocean Drake, like it has a small effect, which is more noticeable because you actually see them healing. But again, I feel like only the Cloud Drake, which I'm a little bit biased towards because everyone else hates it and I love it.
I love the Cloud Drake as well.
Yeah, I like.
So nice.
You see that someone's going faster, so it's at least a visible effect. But I don't know. I think the basic idea we've got at the moment, which is like give an Elemental Drake gives you an evolution point, which that's someone's idea. Like I think that's a good idea. I think that's pretty straightforward. It motivates you to do it, and it feels pretty rewarding when you can evolve your stuff. But it's not crippling if you can't do it for whatever reason.
But we still need to figure out what this evolution means. Like, what's the evolved form of all of her abilities? And in order to do that, we maybe just have to figure out what her abilities are in general.
Yes, you're right. So for the flamethrower, I was trying to wrestle with the idea of having her actually bar flames in a sort of similar way to Rumble, but it's a little bit awkward. Like, if it emanates from her specifically, then you end up with these weird cases like Rumble, where if you turn, then the ability sort of turns with them, and you end up in a little bit of a weird place where like the use cases for it are kind of limited because you can't maneuver around with it without kind of doing some weird stuff. But maybe if it, I suppose the most straightforward thing would be literally if you imagine a Rumble flame spitter, but instead of it being a cone, it's just a line, and the line extends out for a bit further than the flame spitter does, so it's kind of used as a I guess it's not strictly a skill shot. From Shyvanna. That persists for a few seconds. Am I spelling emanating right? I don't think I am. And maybe it can set people on fire.
Yeah. Like some sort of slow dot burn thingy.
Yeah, I mean, just Emanate. Okay.
Emanate.
Emanate. There's certainly, if it was like the dragon's normal attack, so that, well, if we made it like a dragon's normal attack, it would effectively be her current, like, dragonified E, just all the time. Which I think would be okay, but I just really like this idea of her just having like an area denial tool, which I suppose could... Hmm?
I think maybe if she's in dragon form, then it's still like a fireball with a cone behind it. And when she's in human form, it's just kind of like somewhat crowd controlling, as it just, I don't know.
Okay, so her... If we assume that the... Oh, that's right. So this is something which we were kind of wrestling with, is that the... So if we go for the evolved version, has an AoE at the end.
Yep.
So we were kind of thinking that when the Shyvanna was transformed, she'd have access to all of her evolutions, like for the duration of her transformation. There's a whole other thing that if you've already evolved all of these things, why would you want to have that? Because you wouldn't be getting anything. And I think we kind of like try to make that work by having it be that the actual dragon form itself gets stronger, like the active of the dragon form gets stronger over time. So you're less concerned about the fact that you get access to the evolutions and more that you get access to a pretty sick ultimate. But we'll get to that.
Yep.
Final Dragon lets you evolve or makes you evolve your dragon form. That's a kind of a cool idea, actually. I mean, that's a very cosmetic thing, but that's kind of a neat idea. That the dragon, when you get the evolution point, it's kind of flavored based on which dragon it is that you killed.
But does that mean that her attacks change, like the effects that she uses? Because
maybe not.
But like that would essentially mean that base skin Shyvanna is as complex in concept like Elementalist Lux.
Yeah, I think some of that, it's a cool idea. I think it might be a step too complicated. I'm gonna note it down as it would be a cool idea.
It would be a cool skin concept, like Elementalist Shyvanna, and then she can just transform into different kind of elemental drakes. Maybe even dragons that we don't even know.
Yeah, I think if it was just a visual effect, it would be cool. Though, I mean, it might be a little bit confusing. Actually, no, I don't think it would be that confusing. So, if it was like a special skin line where she got that extra effect, but it didn't affect her abilities, because the reason I would like maybe try and stay away from that is just because it's a cool idea, but it's such a game-changing thing that if you got a permanent effect, like, for the Inferno, like, say, gave you a burn effect, I don't know if I want to kind of like get into anything that complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I think the idea of just visually changing to get like a kind of flavor of that dragon would be cool. Well, which would add a lot of burden onto any skin design, though.
True.
But yeah, like I think it's a cool idea. I don't know if we've got like kind of scope here to get into anything that would be as complicated as that. And I also don't know if it would be. There's something to be said for trying to keep it to only a limited amount of choices, just so that each choice is more meaningful. But yeah, I definitely think Elder Dragon should probably come into this in some way. But anyway, okay, so we've got the E, so that's the flamethrower, so that's a line of effect. So think Rumble, Flame Spitter, but in a line.
I'll maybe think Victor Laser.
Oh yeah.
Because then it would be like you can maybe it only works like that. So if you have an enemy in front of you, that's the only time you can use it, because you need like a starting point from which you can like fire a line of fire, I guess.
Well, I was thinking the continuous thing is because you can use it to kind of herd people.
Right.
But we definitely could just work towards this just being a stealth to make it rework. Wait.
No, I mean, the line of fire can stay behind. I feel like that's a good one. But because you wanted to make it like the thing with the cone that we stepped away from, that you tried to explain to me like
It was too
4
complicated.
times or something. Yeah, but maybe it works if it's more like a Victor laser, because with his laser you can kind of decide in which direction it goes, and like from where it starts and where it goes and what it doesn't. I don't know. And maybe if we apply the same treatment to this flame spreader effect, it would look a little bit more natural, in the sense that like she doesn't have to twist her neck around to shoot
Oh
fire
yeah,
at
no,
someone,
I've
but it's
abandoned
like,
the whole idea of trying to get her to physically spit fire behind her. Like, we were having a discussion off stream before we all started trying to figure out at least some basic stuff. And yeah, no, like, I would put that from your mind entirely. We're definitely not going down that route.
oh, okay.
Because yeah, it just ends up being a little crazy. The initial idea was to allow her to spit fire in any direction by having her neck shoot out, so that her head was kind of like, you know, like a sort of Hydra head was above her, so she could sort of turn her head around and spit fire at her. But it was like, yeah, that's too fiddly. But anyway, so we basically got the. I think we've got roughly the right idea, hopefully,
Sure.
for the flamethrower thing. But yeah, so we got the Q and the W.
I had an idea for the W.
Okay, so that's currently the. Oh gosh, what's it called?
The twirly whirly
Bits.
fire tornado.
That's burnout, yes.
Yeah, right. Something like that. I feel like I said, I do like it, and I feel like it fits very well in with her current kit and with like the way that she should be played in the jungle. So maybe it can stay somewhat the same in her human form, but I want to change it in like the evolved form, or when she evolves into a dragon.
Okay, yeah.
Whatever, because I feel like nobody's really thinking of Shyvanna to be a dragon that can fly, and I think using her wings as the visual indicator for using the burnout is pretty neat.
Yes, I had exactly the same idea. That actually, would that would be something fairly unique. That yeah, maybe when she evolves it, or so that she's using her wings. Maybe she could pass through terrain, like while still auto attacking. Like as in she has like a kind of like a sort of a hot glide kind of thing, where she just passes through terrain.
That sounds good. But what kind of terrain? Like, can she pass through thin walls or something?
Yeah, like maybe it's like.
But just in the evolved form, right? Because it would be really OP if she could just do that.
Yeah, so it would basically be that she'd have like a. Maybe she can't auto attack while she's doing that.
Yeah.
But it basically just gives her the cane shadow step kind of thing.
Yeah, but not for that long, right?
I was thinking permanently, but.
I mean, that's kind of sick, because then you can just chill in a wall when team fights are breaking out, and nobody.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, maybe it needs to be a mechanic more like you, when you click up. It would be like the Talon thing that when you click on the wall, it kind of like sends you through that wall.
Yeah, but then the wall's on cooldown, so you can't pass through it all the time.
Okay,
that's good. That's good.
So similar to Talon wall jump. Yeah, I think that'd be cool. I think that'd be a really cool idea that she just kind of like jumps over a wall with a flappy flap.
That's a good one, yeah.
Yeah, I think that'll make it pretty cool. Like, maybe. So one of the things we were trying to hit up in here is that maybe it's a wall jump, but it's slower.
So like a glide.
Yeah, so she kind of like sort of flaps up and then like glides down. So she's a lot more versatile. Actually, that makes a lot of sense. That yeah, she's a lot more versatile in terms of how she gets around the map, but she's, you know, it's still quite telegraphed what she's doing, which I think is a nice way to make it so that you can, you know, work around it, as in you can just leave that part of the terrain, so it's not just, you know, she can't just catch you. Yeah, if you run behind a wall to try and get away from her, if she comes across that wall to get to you, it's not just like the wall isn't there, it's just that she can get across it.
Right. So you can see her approaching, or you know that she is, but she's not like blinking over the wall, like I don't know, with a flash or something. So you can still get away.
So oh, actually, I completely forgot about this. So the whole idea of the temporary transformation, when after she's used the ability, I don't know if maybe we don't even need that. I'm not sure.
I mean, or like you want to put it in brackets or something.
Yeah, okay, well, let's see how far we can get for this kit, because at the moment I'm thinking that maybe it doesn't need to be in there.
Maybe
like,
not.
This kind of sort of leftover effect. Like, oh, actually, yeah, maybe. Let's see. So, actually, let's just go through and grab through the other abilities first before we kind of come back and see if we do actually need any more complexity there. So, okay, so we've got the Q. So this is the biggest offender in being that it's barely noticeable as an ability from anyone else's point of view. Like, she just looks like she's auto-attacking you a bunch. It's the auto-attack reset, which does everything an auto-attack does, and is reduced in cooldown by her hitting things. So it's like, if you literally took that ability out of the game entirely, it would be hard to tell from an outside perspective. Because she'd be attacking a little bit less, but that would be it.
Right. But did we have an idea for it?
Not a strong one.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of time I've kind of defaulted to doing kind of some sort of small leap combined with it, just to kind of effectively keep the ability but make it a more noticeable interaction when it does happen. But that's about as far as I've got with trying to come up with something to modernize that ability a little bit.
Yeah, but we do want to keep the auto attack reset, right?
I think so, but it feels like there should be some kind of extra effect with it that just means that it's more noticeable. I think the first thing is it should be a noticeable ability. Like, if we just went with this really straightforward way of just putting a dash onto it, like a small dash, then you would definitely notice when she lunged forward to go after you, because she'd be gap closing on you.
True. I think that's a good one.
Okay.
So, it's like a leap, auto attack, reset.
Yeah, so if you use it at melee range, it's just an auto attack reset. So maybe if it's a skill shot, which I don't know if those would be considered skill shots, but I guess I'll just call it a skill shot. So yeah, it's effectively the same as the current ability, just with a small dash, and I guess you could always potentially use it defensively, but it would be like, I guess it would have like a really small range, so it's still like very much a melee ability, but it's just you've got some.
Oh, maybe it's the same range as Aatrox's leap.
Yes, I think that sounds about reasonable. So Umbral Dash. I remember that because I was trying to learn the ability names. I was like, that's wait, Umbral just means shadow. So it's another ability where someone just looked at a thesaurus, and I was like, I want darkness dash. Let's call it Umbral Dash.
I mean,
Dash.
The cane walk through the wall is Umbral Trespass, right?
Yep.
That's like shadowy walking through walls. Let's go.
It was probably called Shadow Walk at some point, and someone just got that same thesaurus out.
Damn.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's alright. So we actually got quite a long way through the kit already.
Nice.
So I suppose if we go for the R, so from our correct me if I've if we take away the scaling point off the R, because that's now on the elemental drakes, and go for So if we keep in, so transforms into Mega Dragon, I guess.
Dragoon.
With all the evolutions.
Oh, maybe like for a kind of visual thing, if you put one rank in your ultimate, then the dragon is fairly small, like I don't know, about the size of the big Merc Wolf or something. And
Okay,
then
yeah.
with the second evolution, second rank, it's the size of Red Buff, and then with the third, it's like a normal elemental drake, but it's never as large as the Elder Dragon, I'd say.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. Yeah, I think that sounds good.
Nice.
So yes, for the duration, you've got all the evolutions active. Like, I guess you could always make a nod to the old Shyvanna kit by having a bunch of completely invisible passive abilities as part of it.
We wanted an active ability though.
Yes. So the initial concept we were kind of working with was the sort of, I'll see if I can find a picture of it. There's a movie called Reign of Fire, which was mainly known for I think this particular picture. Let me just see if I can find it. But it's the classic dragon strafing concept. So let me just grab that up. I bring it on stream. But yeah, so like this. So it's a dragon strafing with its flamethrower. So I think we were kind of going for something along those lines, weren't we?
Yes, that was the plan. So if you have your third point in your ultimate, then you can fly a certain distance, kind of like the Corki package, but just not as speedy, because you're a dragon, you're big and heavy, and you need a minute to get from A to B. But while flying this set distance, you also spit fire on the ground. Woo!
Woo woo woo.
Yeah, and that sets the ground on fire, and people like get burned when I walk through it, just like Corki's package or Rumble's ultimate.
Yeah, so we're kind of imagining yeah, you. So yeah, I guess it's like it'd be a wider version of Rumble's ultimate, whereas the equalizer comes down all at once. Shyvanna's actually flying forwards, deploying this kind of like horizontal line, I guess, of kind of moving forwards with her. So I guess it's a bit like it's almost like Maokai's ultimate. Like I don't know no one plays Maokai anymore, but like his thing is that he has an advancing line of things, of routes. But in this case, it would be an advancing line of flame that would be bringing Shyvanna along with it, rather than, I guess Maokai can walk behind his, but she'd actually be tied to it.
Yep.
So if the third rank is like a Corki passive, as in it's got a long range, are we just like talking about a shorter, like lesser versions of the effect at first, second, and third rank then? So like a shorter range, and I guess it could just be shorter range.
I'm not sure. Maybe I feel like definitely with our first rank, it's still worth just getting all of your evolved skills. So maybe with the first rank, you don't actually have that effect at all.
Oh no! Well, no active at all.
No active at all. It's just like for the first, like I mean, you do have an active. You transform and you get all of your skills in the evolved version.
Okay,
and
yeah. So presumably gives bonus stats. Just leave it at that.
I mean, a level 6 Shyvanna transforming into a dragon and then doing all of this fancy dragon stuff seems pretty scary to me. And then as the game progresses, she has to get progressively scarier. So maybe with the second rank, she can reactivate her ultimate, and then she does the whole flying thing. So she has like a really long range gap closer if she wants to gank with it, or...
Okay, yeah, no, I like that. So she gets the sort of the flying effect, but without the whole strafing.
Yep, and then the line of fire comes in at rank 3.
Yeah, I think that's a cool idea. Like, so she's definitely got a very, I want to say scaling every time. Yeah, she's got a very big idea that she's kind of like evolving and losing her humanity as she goes.
Right.
I actually think that works relatively well. Like, there's a bit more going on. So the whole, I initially had the whole idea that after she used her ability, she'd have some kind of further effect afterwards, but I don't know how necessary that actually is. Because I feel like that would maybe just be adding on more complexity for the sake of it.
I mean, we still have to figure out what the added effects from all the elemental drakes are, or are they just the evolutions?
I was thinking that, yeah, I think just the evolution points.
Ah, okay.
Like, I think that's probably the most realistic way of handling it. As much as it would have been cool to include all of the like extra bits and pieces, I suspect it might just be either the effect is going to be so small as to kind of not really matter, or significant enough that it's going to be a real brain drain in terms of like what stuff you're getting, and like from an opponent's point of view, not knowing what Shyvanna's even doing. Because like, I think they've got like, if we go to the extremes of what certainly was saying, which is I don't know if he was ever intending it to be this far, but like you have to look at Shyvanna and like squint at her and be like, I think she's got 2 clouds on her Q and her E, and a infernal on her W. So I've got to remember to react this way, which is just too much. I think
True.
It's a cool idea, but I think it feels like we're sort of jumping several steps of design where you would come in with like the most complicated version of this, and then you'd eventually pare it down to be like, what's the basic idea here? Which is that drakes give you some sort of, they enhance you. And that's what you're really trying to go for. I think, so the only thing we're really missing there is the evolved version of the Q, I suppose.
Right.
Which, I mean, the most obvious thing is just to make it a larger leap that can go across terrain, maybe. But I don't know if you've got anything more creative.
I mean, she already goes across terrain with her ultimate and her W.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, she does already, doesn't she? Just completely ignores terrain.
Yep. I'm a dragon.
I am a dragon. Aroo.
Maybe she has, like, her evolved form could be something like she still has the same dash, maybe a little bit longer, like double the range of the Umbral dash. And the area in which she lands, like the ground kind of cracks and it creates a field in which all enemies are slowed.
Okay. Yeah, I think that works. I think, yeah, I like this thing of Shyvanna. It's like, I feel like it's just complicated enough to make her feel like a kind of like a recently designed champion, but without being so hideously complicated to be like impossible to explain. So we've got, actually, yeah, if the evolution and permanently changes part of her appearance. Yeah, so I think we can have that whole body deformation idea in the evolutions. So it's like, I see a drawing starting to manifest itself. So yeah, she's still got the transformation thing. It's not quite as extreme as I initially wanted, which was to have her transform continuously. But I think it's probably enough to make it so that her body changing thematic comes through more strongly through play. But yeah, okay. So I think that's pretty much it. Wait,
I like it. I would play that.
Yeah, I think I would play it as well. Let's see, how long are we through today? Because I think that's going to be basically it. Okay, we're about 1 hour 15, so we're basically where we wanted to be, so a little bit longer. So we haven't actually messed with the lore at all because it didn't really inspire either of us, did it?
I mean, we were thinking about like just completely changing the lore because
that's the most important part. We almost forgot the most important part. Completely changing her character.
Right, we wanted to make Shyvanna into a completely different kind of person.
Yeah, personality, I guess.
Yeah, because I mean, right now she's all about Demacia, and then she has a couple of quips about like avenging her father for some reason. But there's nothing in there. She's just boring and bland, and I don't know. She could be anyone.
So yeah, I think so. We kind of figured like basically anything we put into her character at this point is going to be better than where she is at the moment, because yeah, it's totally bland. So the best thing we could come up with, which I don't remember where this came from originally, was the idea of making her into a California Valley girl.
I think the idea came from like the whole thing about her killing all of her family because they're annoying, and then
Oh, that's right.
I don't know, because she kills all of the elemental drakes, and I mean they're kind of family to her, right? So what would be her motivation to just go up and like kill Uncle Craig, for example? And then he was like, Uncle Craig is a notorious alcoholic who spills his brandy all over the countertops, and Shyvanna doesn't like it, so she just murders him.
So yeah, just making her more of a jerk. Like, it's, I guess, the kind of idea behind that. And also because making Valley Girl voices is a lot of fun. Yeah. I think we did have some particularly weird ideas about her.
Yeah, sure.
But leave it to say that basically just trying to give her a little bit more personality by just kind of giving her like an outrageous bit of voice acting kind of personality to come across, because yeah, at the moment she's just so incredibly bland.
She's just so incredibly bland, and I feel
like she could use, I don't know, any kind of spice that we could give her.
Yeah, I think making her slightly silly, I think would go a long way towards making her more compelling as a character. Because I like playing Shyvanna, but her personality does not. Like, I was like, she's got a personality? Pretty sure no. Like,
nah.
I mean, you could substitute, like, the whole Valley Girl is just because we found it funny. But you could pretty much just substitute any kind of character archetype in there, and it would still be an improvement. But,
True.
yeah, I think that'll be it. So I'm pretty happy with the kit we've ended up with there. It's like, you've kind of like, I think the biggest change is that she's kind of a lot more mobile than she used to be, and that she's leaning more heavily on the transformation aspect of her character than she would have been previously.
Right, but I think that would be the direction that Riot would go if they eventually decide to rework Shyvanna.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think we did alright. Alright.
Yeah.
So that's going to be it for us now. So that is officially the end of us trying to get ahead of Riot and rework things before they do. Do let me know what you thought of what we did. I'll include some links in the description to the other videos from this kind of micro series. So there's been 5 other champion design workshops which were just based on coming up with stuff from scratch, and then we've had the 5 which have been based on the whole idea of reworking pre-existing champions, which I think we'll probably come back to, but we'll leave for a little bit just so we can kind of get back to coming up with crazy nonsense from scratch.
The wishy-washy weasel wizard.
Yes, that was the best name in all champion design, honestly. Alright guys, so happy we've got your Twitter handle on there if people want to hear more from you. Obviously,
Right.
mine as well. So yeah, I'm going to try and keep this as a weekly thing as much as possible, but we'll see who's around. I think Exodus is away for this week and next week as well because he's off working at a festival. But happy if you're around, then maybe we can figure something out.
Yeah, sure.
If not, I'll just keep people updated through my Discord and on Twitter as well. But guys, thank you so much for watching, and if you guys who made it all the way to the end, and we'll hopefully see you next week.